When a man got stranded on an island, his wife started seeing someone else. Years later, when he finally made it back, he was completely broken after finding out what happened, because he had spent so many tough days holding on to memories of her. Let's dive into the story. Meet Chuck. Chuck was flying on a private plane for his company, heading to Malaysia, but as the plane was flying over the ocean, the engine suddenly failed. Before Chuck could react, the plane crashed right into the sea. There were only 4 people on board. Unfortunately, everyone except Chuck died in the crash. Chuck survived, but passed out from the impact. The next morning, Chuck woke up to find himself washed up on the shore of a deserted island. He hoped someone else might be there to help him. He yelled for help at the top of his lungs, but no one answered. He walked further inland, thinking maybe someone would be there, but all he saw was jungle and mountains. After searching for a while, completely exhausted, he returned to the beach. There, he wrote the word "help" in huge letters in the sand, hoping a passing plane might see it and come rescue him. He was sure someone would find him if they saw his message. As night fell, Chuck found a safe spot and fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, the waves had washed away his help sign. Determined, he started gathering sticks to write the message again. Nearby, Chuck spotted some FedEx boxes. He worked for FedEx and was supposed to deliver those packages. Chuck was a reliable guy who always finished his deliveries on time and never gave the company any trouble. Chuck had a girlfriend named Kelly. They lived together, and Chuck was planning to marry her. One day, he promised Kelly he'd wrap up work early and come home to get married, but fate had other plans, and he never made it back. Stranded on the island, Chuck was starving and missing Kelly terribly. He checked the boxes for food, but found nothing edible. Suddenly, Chuck thought he heard a noise and got scared. Maybe someone else was on the island. But then a coconut fell from a tree, and he realized the noise was just that. Chuck had an idea. He needed to drink coconut water. After all, seawater was undrinkable. He gathered a bunch of coconuts, but struggled to break them open without tools. The tough shells wouldn't crack no matter how hard he tried. Finally, Chuck picked up a sharp rock, fashioned it into a makeshift tool, and tried again. This time, he cracked the coconut open and drank the refreshing water. It was a huge relief. After drinking water, Chuck felt stronger and decided to explore the area. He started looking around nearby and then noticed an island with the tallest peak of the mountain. He thought about climbing up there to see if he could find help, but as he moved forward, he faced another challenge. Sharp rocks on the way that hurt his feet, so he tore some of his clothes and wrapped them around his feet for protection. Then he climbed the mountain to see if he could spot anyone from above. While coming down, he saw something. It was a pilot from his crashed plane who had died. Seeing that made Chuck very sad, so he found a good spot and buried the pilot there. However, he took the pilot's boots and flashlight because those were the only things that could help him. Poor Chuck struggled to survive on that island. He was alone, but he learned to collect dew water at night and was trying to catch fish. Using a wooden stick, he experimented with fishing methods inspired by how ancient tribes used to do it. Still, he hadn't mastered fishing properly yet. For food, he had some fruits from the island and the dew water. One night, Chuck was sitting by the shore when he saw a ship far out in the ocean. He got really excited and started shouting loudly, but his voice couldn't reach that far. He also tried signaling the ship by lighting his flashlight, but the people on the ship couldn't see him from such a distance. Poor Chuck got tired and eventually fell asleep there. The next morning, when he woke up, he thought about using the boat he had arrived in to leave the island. He knew no one else was there or coming, so he got on the airboat and tried to sail away, but the waves were too strong and kept pushing him back to the shore. Before he reached the shore, he got hurt in his foot and became injured. Chuck dragged himself back to the beach. That night, while getting ready to sleep, it started raining. To avoid getting soaked, he went into a nearby cave, which was very dark. He turned on his flashlight, but it ran out of battery overnight. Now he had no light. The only thing he had left was fire, but he didn't even know how to make one. So he went back to the FedEx boxes that had floated ashore. He opened them one by one and found many things, but only 2 things were useful to him: a pair of rollerblades and a football. Using the blades from the rollerblades, Chuck made a sharp tool to catch fish. This time, his fishing tool worked well, and he managed to catch both fish and crabs. But Chuck couldn't eat raw fish, so now he needed fire to cook. He started trying to make a fire, but despite many attempts, he couldn't get it to burn. His hands got blistered. Angry, Chuck shouted out loud. Then, while peeling a coconut, an idea struck his mind. If he rubbed 2 sticks back and forth, maybe he could start a fire. After a lot of effort, he finally succeeded and the fire caught. He was very happy and started dancing around the fire because the fire would make many things easier for him. Along with that, he picked up a football lying nearby and drew a face on it. He started talking to it and named the football Wilson. Now, Chuck had a friend on the island, a football named Wilson. One day, Chuck started having a toothache. Although his tooth was still intact, the pain was intense, so he decided to pull it out. Somehow he broke the tooth out, but as soon as he did, he fainted. Slowly, time passed, and Chuck had been living on the island for 4 years. Over those 4 years, his appearance had completely changed. Earlier, he used to be fat, but now he was very thin. His beard and hair had grown very long. Chuck had learned how to survive on the island. He even learned to catch fish by throwing sticks from a distance. His friend Wilson was always with him, and their friendship had grown stronger. Chuck would talk to Wilson all day. One morning while Chuck was eating, he heard a sound. When he went to check, he found a sheet of steel lying there. Seeing the sheet made Chuck think of returning home again. He decided to use the sheet to build a boat so he could leave the island forever. For the past 4 years, Chuck had tried to escape, but every time the waves pushed him back. He began cutting down big coconut trees and bringing them to the shore to build the boat. He didn't know how to build a boat, but he had to face these challenges to get home. After a lot of hard work, the boat was finally ready. But then another problem arose. He had to wait for the wind to change direction. Finally, after many days, the wind shifted, and that was the moment Chuck had been waiting for. He set off with his raft, and his only companion, Wilson, was with him. Chuck began pushing forward with all his strength. Soon he reached a part of the ocean where massive waves crashed around him. It was one of the biggest challenges he had to face, but Chuck didn't give up. He fought through the waves and kept going. Sailing nonstop wasn't easy, especially since Chuck had no idea where he was heading, but his spirit was unbreakable. He knew one thing for sure. He didn't want to go back to the island. Out at sea, he had to endure rainstorms and harsh weather. For food, Chuck managed to catch fish, and he collected rainwater to drink. But one day, something happened that broke him completely. His friend Wilson fell into the water. Chuck didn't notice at first, but by the time he saw him, Wilson had drifted far away. Desperate, Chuck dove into the ocean, trying to reach him, but the deep sea was unforgiving. He couldn't make it. Eventually, he had to return to his raft. Back on the raft, Chuck broke down crying. He had just lost the only friend he had, the friend who'd been with him for the past 4 years. Wilson was gone. Chuck was devastated. He didn't know what to do. He tried to move on, but Wilson's memory haunted him. Days passed, and Chuck didn't eat. He became weak, nearly lifeless. Then, out of nowhere, a ship appeared on the horizon. Chuck mustered all his strength and raised his hand. The crew spotted him, and finally, Chuck was rescued. He returned home, but everything had changed. Everyone had assumed he was dead. His family and friends had moved on with their lives. They had even held a funeral for him and the love of his life, Kelly. She had gotten married. She had children now. When Chuck found out, it shattered him. He couldn't believe it. He and Kelly had once promised each other a life together, but now everything was different. Brokenhearted, Chuck made the decision to leave quietly. He returned a gift that Kelly had once given him. He said his final goodbye to her and turned to leave. But before he could go, Kelly stopped him. She gave him one last kiss and tearfully whispered, "I'm sorry." Chuck's world felt like it had collapsed. He didn't know what to do next. He had left his car at Kelly's house, and now he drove off, lost in thought. As he pulled away, Kelly stood watching him, her eyes filled with sorrow. Unable to let him go just like that, she ran after his car. Chuck stopped. For a moment, they faced each other again. Kelly, through her tears, said, "Everyone told me you were gone, that you were dead. That's why I got married. But the truth is, you'll always be my first love." Chuck replied to her with, "I love you," after which they hugged each other. Chuck got her into his car and dropped Kelly back at her home. Then Chuck went to his friend's place where he was very sad. Chuck began expressing his sorrow to his friend. He said, "If I had died on that island, it would have been better. And today, I have to face this day. I even thought of dying on the island, but thinking about Kelly, I couldn't die. But today, Kelly has married someone else. Seeing that, I can't bear it. I lived only for Kelly, but today I have lost her." He became very emotional. Poor Chuck and his love. Chuck had now returned to his old life. He still had a package he had saved from the island. He went to return this package to its owner, but no one was at home. On the package, he wrote, "This package saved my life." After leaving it at the door, he moved on. Ahead, he reached a crossroads, where he stood looking around in all directions. Just then, a girl came by who told Chuck the way and then left. The package's mark was on her car too, and she was the same girl whose house Chuck had just delivered the parcel to. rescue, Chuck became convinced that this girl had also lost her life partner, the same one who had died with Chuck in the plane crash. With this sorrowful story, the movie ends.